Welcome everybody. I'm glad to have with me once again Dr. Randolph with Cure Point Cancer here in Dublin, and I want to thank y'all for watching our first series of shows. Today we're going to talk about men. As I said, Dr. Randolph, before we closed out the last show, and I remember you saying, yeah, that's right, and that is how hard-headed we are by nature. Men, I was talking to a cardiologist not long ago, and I said, Doctor, why is it men don't want to go to the doctor? He said, James, I'm a doctor and I don't want to go to the doctor. So I think it's just a man thing. I don't know what it is. My mom goes to the doctor, but my daddy, you got to make him go to the doctor.
It is machismo, maybe, and trying to be the stronger image to the women around us, so to speak, by being this concept of being invincible, emotionless, and just dependable and reliable. And I think all of those things play a role. And then the other thing is fear. And for men particularly, I think some of the fear, particularly since prostate cancer is one of the major cancers next to lung, but prostate cancer, men have this absolute fear because it affects their virility, their masculinity, and anything that challenges that makes them really want to deviate away and around it. So when you talk about prostate cancer, historically, men did not like the idea of having their prostate removed because that almost assured them of being impotent and maybe incontinent, where they cannot control their urine, not able to get an erection, and then what sort of man are they if that exists? And that is probably one of the bigger fears. And then men also have this aversion to having a digital rectal examination. However, I would say that my understanding in the military, most men had a physical that involved that. So yeah, it was something that maybe they had and they don't want to experience it again, but in that concept of maintenance, it's probably a very important thing. And relative to prostate cancer, a lot of men believe that, well, gee, you can just do the blood test and see if I have it, but it's not just the blood test, because the blood test, the PSA, prostatic specific antigen, is not an indicator of cancer. It's an alarm to you or to the physician that something is going on in the prostate to cause it to be elevated. But ultimately, it's looking at a series of prostate PSA tests and doing a digital rectal examination, because the PSA can be absolutely normal. But it's only if that doctor does a digital rectal examination, they may feel a nodule that will lead to biopsy. And then even if they had a normal PSA and they had that biopsy that shows it's cancer, one of the unfortunate things, or things that I've seen in my years, is that they typically will have a more aggressive cancer. And the reason for that is that cancer is basically an abnormal cell that doesn't work properly. So a normal prostate gland will make PSA, but a cancerous one that is very aggressive, the mechanism inside that cell is not making enough PSA to make it be elevated. And it's only feeling that nodule that kind of alerts somebody that there may be a cancer. And the other thing about the digital rectal, you can find a lot of colorectal cancers by doing the examination of the prostate, because the rectum is right there. And so you kind of get a 2-for-1 in terms of checking 2 of your organ systems. Another thing about it that men, again, have that aversion is having a prostatectomy if they have prostate cancer. Well, we may not go into it right now, but there are an array of different options for treatment of prostate cancer that do not necessarily guarantee that you're going to be impotent or be incontinent. And those are things that are definitely vary from one person to the next, but that is an array of management that we have available to us now that we didn't maybe 15, 20, well, maybe 20, 25 years ago. But most men think about the prostatectomy as being the issue.
I hear men all the time when I say that, about that you need to go get an annual exam, especially when you get my age, 50 and over especially, you need to be thinking of those things. But, I'd rather go see Dr. Hayes once a year, get an exam. I feel better because I want to live. I mean, that's the bottom line, men. We want to live. Don't you want to live? I'm sure you do sitting there. I see all of you nodding your head right there now. But we do want to live. So, look. Go see, and I go to Dr. Hayes, go to your urologist, whoever it is, get that exam because like Dr. Randolph said, that PSA could be deceiving. There's more that goes into it than just that blood test. And I know I hear it from men all the time. I just want the blood test. I said, no, that's not how it works. You need to get that exam and find out. It's real quick. It's over, you're going on with life, and you don't have to go back for another year. So, talking about prostate cancer, are there different types of radiation if you get to that time? And is there different kinds of radiation? And when do you decide? Is it stage 2, 3, 4? Is there any set way to do it, or is it individual by patient?
It's individual by patient, but let's say that if there is a family history of men having prostate cancer, this is an important thing not just for men, but for all people, is to know at what age somebody in their family may have had cancer. Because we find for prostate cancer, if your grandfather or father had it when they were in their 70s, you probably want to maybe get your PSA and your prostate checked in your 60s. And it used to be the adage that, prostate cancer happens in older men, but there are men in their 30s and 40s who develop prostate cancer. And when you dig deeper in some of their situations, they had family members, uncles, fathers, who developed the cancer at 55. So usually, depending on the age, I will kind of tell patients to make sure they let their sons know about their diagnosis, and they probably should get a baseline PSA at a much earlier age. Now, there's a lot of discussion of, what is that age? And it kind of depends on the complete family history. Because again, if there's a man who's developed prostate cancer at 45, I tell him to get his sons to go in at 30, 35 to get a baseline PSA. If there's a family history of colon cancer, the same thing, go in earlier and get a baseline colonoscopy. Relative to once you discover prostate cancer, the things that influence what treatment would be recommended depends on a variety of things. One is your PSA level. Another is what does the tumor or the biopsy specimen look like under the microscope? Is the tumor a slow-growing tumor, or is it a medium-speed tumor, or poorly differentiated, which means more aggressive and more bizarre tumor? And the aggressiveness of the tumor is determined by the pathologist, the guy who looks at the tissue that's taken out of your body and looks at it under the microscope. And there's this numerical scale called the Gleason score that goes from 2 to 10. And so we, as physicians, know that a Gleason score of 7 or higher is a more aggressive tumor and may require a more aggressive treatment approach. A person who has a Gleason 5 to 7 or 6 to 7 has a moderately aggressive tumor, and that would influence the treatment. And then there are men who have well-differentiated tumor, and that's an area where could be open to some controversy. I have my own mixed feelings about it because a lot of people talk about watchful waiting. And one of the things that I always say to my colleagues and to patients, what are you watching and waiting for? Because if you bother to go get a PSA and it's abnormal, and you bother to yield to your physician to say, go ahead and do a biopsy, I think psychologically it's kind of hard to know that you've got cancer and you're just going to stand around and go on with life and watch and wait to see something happen. And the real difficulty on that, what are you watching and waiting for? The number going up does not necessarily mean that the cancer is getting worse, because if the cancer gets worse, it may not make PSA. So you're sitting there with a time bomb going on. So there are other things that we're looking at to really try to categorize which patients are better for watchful waiting. I think a man who is probably 65 or older and has a well-differentiated tumor may benefit from the concept of watchful waiting. But again, patients really need to understand what that really means and participate in their care and not just say, oh, the doctor told me to come back in 2 years. Because what ends up happening is 4 years, and then things have really gotten out of hand.
Watchful waiting, I don't even like the sound of that. You know, I'd be a nervous wreck. Just,
I think so.
That's just, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's scary. What you just said, I'm sitting here. I'm glad the camera was on him while he was talking about it, because I'm over here like, what in the world? I'd have to find me another doctor if he wants to watch and wait. I don't know about that, but that's just my opinion there. We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Mom, it's on my iPad. Did you look in the media room? Oh, found it.
Hi, I'm Don Carswell. Come into Dublin Nissan this month and buy a new Nissan and pay 0 interest for up to 7 years. And don't forget our second annual 12 Days of Christmas. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from Dublin Nissan.
Mid-State Pools and Spas knows pools. In-ground pools to above-ground pools. Mid-State Pools and Spas has over 35 years in the industry, building over 3,000 pools. We build all of our own pools, never subcontracting the work out. So if you're ready to build a pool, renovate a pool, or if you need weekly maintenance or liner replacement with a full 20-year warranty, call the professionals at Mid-State Pools and Spas. Visit our showroom today at 2273 Veterans Boulevard in Dublin and see the new line of Marquee Spas. For the ultimate in hot tub experiences, choose Marquee Spas. Also see our new selection of casual patio furniture, available now at our showroom, Mid-State Pools and Spas, where we know pools.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm talking with Dr. Randolph today, an oncologist here at Cure Point Cancer, and we're talking to men specifically today. We've been talking about prostate cancer, and I want to ask you, we were talking about before the break, something called watchful waiting. You really educated me on that one, but what if it's a small localized tumor? What do we do then?
I personally believe in informing the patient of their various options, because ultimately a patient needs to know what his options are, and then he has to make that decision of what he is psychologically comfortable with pursuing, because nobody has an absolute crystal ball as to what's going to be the exact right thing for you. A lot of times, you know, surgery is an option for some patients who have early disease, but radiation is also an option for patients who have early disease, particularly brachytherapy, which is the use of radioactive elements in the prostate gland that gives off like a bomb blast of radiation in the prostate gland, but spares normal tissue. Not only does it spare the normal tissue, but patients who have brachytherapy have a better chance of having less impotence and incontinence, provided the disease has not involved certain structures, and the skill and the planning of the physics and radiation team is on point to minimize dose to surrounding tissue. You know, surgery is also an option, and that is also a skill set of the urologist in terms. You've heard terms of nerve-sparing techniques where you can theoretically maintain potency if you dissect the nerves off of the gland and take the prostate out. And again, for some patients, taking the prostate gland out gives them a greater sense of comfort that it's been gotten. And again, that's one of those things of a discussion point. What does it mean that you've gotten it all? And that's something that each doctor would have to explain to you what their perception of what it means that they've gotten it all. Because if you take the prostate gland out, you will sometimes have the urologist doing lymph node samplings. And if the lymph nodes are positive, well, they've gotten out what they could see, but evidently the cancer has started to spread to the lymph nodes, so that may require additional forms of treatment. And so, you know, there's not one set answer per se, but there are things that we try to categorize and put patients into different boxes, so to speak, and then see if the treatment that we would recommend may be best for them. You know, and to some extent, it also depends on which door you go into. Do you go into the urologist door, or do you go into the radiation oncologist door, or do you really go to your primary care doctor and have him involved in helping you navigate the whole scenario, know the questions to ask and things of that nature, because most people didn't go to med school and they're going to be relying on their doctor, but hopefully people will also read. And that's the other important thing, to talk to family, because you'd be surprised that Uncle Johnny over here had prostate cancer 20 years ago and he's still alive. But what did he do? Well, he had radiation, or he had a prostatectomy. But again, getting information kind of helps you direct what you might do.
That family history is so important. And talking about it, you know, men don't want to talk about it. Now, I was reading where African American men both get and die at a higher rate than white men when it comes to prostate cancer. First of all, is this accurate?
There's accuracy with a lot of footnotes to it. Access to care is a very important thing. And also having confidence of who you're going to, that they're giving you a straight story, is a very important thing. And you know, you've probably heard during this time of the vaccine coming out and how people are reluctant on taking vaccines, and you may have heard about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment and things of that nature. So there's a level of distrust about some things in terms of knowing, well, am I just being experimented on or whatever? So there are these hurdles that delay people from getting care sometimes because they just don't know. And so that's why having comfort with your physician and having a sense that they view you as a person and are concerned truly about you as opposed to whatever. And so those are factors, I think, that lead to that. And the other thing is that the access to health care is one of those things where, you know, people have to get time off from their job. And depending if you've got a job that allows you to take time off to go to the doctor, you have good health insurance, you'll probably do it. But if you're working in a mechanic shop or working out in a construction job, it's not just that easy to go. So the only time you end up going is when you're starting to have a problem. But when you're having the problem is when that is a problem for you. And so the job market of what maybe African American men are in may also contribute to that to some extent. But the idea of experimentation is real because, you know, I at a point in my career, I was taking care of a fair number of the prison population, and a lot of those individuals felt that they weren't sure if they were being experimented on, and some of the people, the administrators in the prison, were concerned about that too, and that's why I started getting some of that business because, again, I think you have to present to a patient what their options are and let them make the call. And it's not just with prostate cancer. It's like we would see differences in how African American men would be managed relative to cardiovascular disease. Would they be put on medication or would they be offered bypass surgery? So there are these subtle nuances that, you know, biases come into play. They may not mean to be intentional, but you know, the value of another person's life is something that we should always take into account, be them black or white or Asian or Latin. And sometimes the reality is that it's not. And unless you walk into somebody else's shoes to experience what they've gone through, is the only way you really kind of understand that. Or knowing people of different ethnicities or persuasions, do you maybe have a level of sensitization as to what they may be going through in terms of assessing what they do? And that may have answered too much.
No, that was great, but I want to drill down a little further. You got me thinking here, because let's drill down on the footnotes that you just shared with me. But basically, you're saying that access to health care, and I'm thinking about the mechanic that hard to get off work. It's already 6 o'clock when he gets off. He don't have health care. So now he's going to have to go to the urologist or wherever. He's got to pay it out of his pocket. You're already having trouble making ends meet. So basically the number one footnote is that access to health care.
Yes.
And the second footnote is the trustworthiness. Yes. And I think about, like you said, the Tuskegee, the syphilis, that's real.
Yes.
I mean, we know that, and in hindsight, we know that, but even now with I see the Gallup poll on the COVID, it was 40% a few months ago, now it's up to 60% that say they will take it, but if you don't trust, we always say trust but verify. Mm-hmm. Well, we're not scientists, no. We're not doctors. How do we verify a vaccine? We can't. No. We just have to trust that, and all of us are in that.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. So maybe the numbers aren't as skewed as we think they are.
We are not dramatically genetically different. Yeah. Our skin complexions are different, yeah. And it has some impact, genetics, in terms of disease, but we're very much the same, because if you find a black man who gets diagnosed with a Gleason's 5 or 6 tumor and is offered the same thing as a white individual or Asian individual, they'll do just as well as those individuals.
Yeah, that makes sense, because we're all, I know at our Bible school this past year, we taught our kids that we were all one race, and that's the human race. Mm-hmm. And that's so true. We are all, and through time, and we could get into that. That's a deeper subject, but the pigment of our skin, and there's the reasons for that too, that we could go back through, and we can talk about that. That's another show right there in itself. But so you really, I hope y'all were listening to that. I know I learned right there. And another thing, I was reading this focus group from MD Anderson. I think it was a 45-year-old black man that said when he goes to the doctor, and these are real issues here, but when he goes to the doctor, he says the magazines are all white people, the literature is all white people, and so don't you think we should think about things like that? Because if I go in and it's all the literature's just black people or magazines black people, we're human. Yeah. We have emotions, and we can't sometimes control those emotions. So do you think things like this we need to be thinking about and trying to make people more comfortable so they want to come back to the doctor?
Yes, but how do you get people to think about that? I'm not totally sure, but I would say
I'm hoping
yes.
Right now.
I would, yeah, and I would say that is a truism, making people more comfortable. But what also makes people comfortable is having, people who are like them, yes, spreading some of that word. Now, one of the interesting things that I saw on TV, and I guess I had seen it months ago, one of the major researchers in the development of this vaccine is an African American or a woman of dark complexion. I'm not sure what country she's from, but she was a scientist, and she was very instrumental in developing this. So, and there have been more African American doctors out there who have been involved. So including people into processes helps ease discomforts and hopefully get people not to just think they're getting sold a bill of goods, because there are people involved in the decision making and involved in the production and involved in the creation of different items, so to speak.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Lawrence County's leader in hometown banking is Farmers State Bank. From our customer service professionals to our mortgage specialist or any of our professional lenders, we're committed to making banking as easy as FSB. Farmers State Bank, with locations in Dublin and Cadwell, member FDIC, and an equal housing lender. Stop by today and find out why we make banking as easy as FSB.
It's nothing personal. It's just business.
Hello?
That's how some people do things.
Right away.
To us, everything we do is personal. Because anyone can answer the call. It's who shows up that matters most. That's the quality of your independent agent and the company that stands behind them.
Ask Curry Maffett Insurance in Dublin if auto owners make sense for you.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm talking with Dr. Randolph today, an oncologist here at Cure Point Cancer, and we're talking to men specifically today. Okay, another gentleman, he was 54-year-old, same focus group, and he says, black man says that it's taboo in the black community. I can't answer this. I want to talk to you about this in a little more detail, but he says it was taboo in the black community to get a prostate exam. And also that we don't want to talk about it, he said, because we don't want to hear nothing bad.
I would say, to say whether it's actually taboo or goes back to that machismo thing, which I think crosses black and white men and stuff. Nobody wants a finger stuck up their butt and stuff, for one thing. And then again, this whole thing about your masculinity and your being the hunter of your clan gets challenged with that perception. Yes. You know, it's just, and maybe we're becoming a softer society, but I think there are more men that I'm encountering who tell me that they didn't know that much about their parents and they wish they did, because now that they know this, they have been going around telling other men that they know that are of African American nature what's going on, because they recognize telling people is the strength and the power that you get by knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Amen. This is a wonderful show. I think, I hope you're listening. I know I am. And we're listening to a man that knows, first of all. It's, you're sitting there with me. Most likely you're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I didn't even spend the night in the Holiday Inn Express last night. But we need to listen to our doctor. You know, I told somebody the other day, well, I went to the doctor and I was talking to the nurse, and she said, I'm so glad you did that. And I said, well, that's what the doctor told me to do. I mean, I don't go to do what I want to do. And goes back to that, us being hard-headed. We need to go to the doctor, but if our doctor tells us to do X, Y, Z, we need to do X, Y, Z, not B, Z, Y, or whatever.
True, but one of the other things you said was verify. So, you know, don't blindly walk down the road. If you've got a question, ask that doctor the question. And if you're not sure about the answer he's giving you, then you go do your research by either talking to your friends, other family members, or if necessary, a second opinion.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I'll assure you, I'm not trying to answer for you here, but I'll assure if someone comes to you and they want a second opinion, you'll help them get the second opinion. You can recommend a good doctor, or you will do the second opinion if they've already went somewhere else, if that's what. And like I said, I'm not answering for you, but go ahead and speak for yourself.
No, but that's accurate. I mean, I think no physician, well, my belief is that no physician should be insulted if somebody wants to get another opinion, because I'd rather that patient to be comfortable with the steps in the path that they're going to take. And if they have to get that comfort from somebody else, so be it. I think that's best for them. And so I encourage second opinions if I sense doubt in a patient, or if I just say, I don't have an absolute answer. Go ahead and seek out some other opinions potentially. And, I guess I've also been fortunate to kind of have gone to some of the better places academically that I know people and I know what type of work they do, so I have no hesitation to send people someplace else. Not everybody can go someplace else, and that is not a problem, but that's a reality. And so, I encourage people to read. And, with the internet, unfortunately, sometimes there's so much information there, you don't know what's really real and what's really not. And, and I know a lot of doctors get very frustrated having people come in with stacks of papers and trying to cross-reference and say,
Google said.
that. Yeah, and that does get to be kind of frustrating, but, there are ways to communicate, I think, to people that, yeah, I want you to read, but, also recognize you did not get a medical degree and that it doesn't all come on an instantaneous reading of an article. Some of it comes with a clinical experience or experience of dealing with patients. And there are computers out here now that they're trying to gear to make diagnoses because they have a brain that knows all sorts of things. But again, that human component is not there. Human component is also very important because you need to know that, well, this person, they have their family support network right here. And so you tell them to go over there to get this, that, and the other, but they have no means to go there, or if they go there, who's going to help take care of them? So you've got to balance so many different things in what you recommend to patients and try to provide help for them in that manner.
You've been talking to my doctor, I believe, because my doctor tells me, James, stay off Google. Quit, because I'll Google something in a minute, because we have access to those things and we want to do research, and we've said it over and over during this show about verifying, and but you're right. That computer, you're reading, you never know what you're reading. First of all, we don't know who typed it in. Anybody could have typed it in. So, but to go to like you said, a physician who has not only that degree and has studied hard to get that, but he has the access of thousands of patients, of experience. So trust your doctor. Go see your doctor. If you don't feel comfortable, go get a second opinion, just like we just talked about a minute ago. We're going to take a break and come back and wrap things up. Stay with us.
Hey, I'm Tasha Rowland, and everyone here at the Cloverleaf Restaurant would like to invite you to come try our country-style all-you-can-eat buffet. We hold ourselves to the highest standards of safety and quality in the food we prepare for you. We clean our facilities constantly, and we offer curbside service. Just call 478-275-2080, and we will have your order ready right away. And Friday is our seafood day. You deserve a great meal. Cloverleaf Caters. Call us for your next gathering or event. So treat yourself to the Cloverleaf Restaurant and make sure you're satisfied. We are open Sunday through Fridays 11 to 2 with plenty of dine-in, or we can get it ready to go for you.
If you're in the market for affordable transportation, come into Dublin Auto Sales. Getting to work, school, or around town every day requires dependable transportation, and that's what you'll find at Dublin Auto Sales. We offer in-house financing too, so credit is never an issue. See Wayne Kemp or any of his friendly staff, Billy Topping, Alan Fields, and TJ DeRochi. Look for Dublin Auto Sales at 606 East Jackson Street and 511 North Jefferson, where you'll find a great deal. Dublin Auto Sales, affordable transportation you can count on.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Dr. Randolph, and this has been a great show, first of all. I love doing shows like this where I learn so much. You have taught me so much today, and I hope all of you watching have been listening to this. And if you've not gotten anything else out of it, men, I don't care if you're black, white, green, or purple, or who you are, go to the doctor. Early detection is so important, and eating right, our diets, and we're going to be covering a lot of that over the next few months, so we hope you'll join us on each show. But before we go, Dr. Randolph, is there anything that maybe I hadn't asked you or hadn't brought up that that you think's important to men watching? Just, you got that camera on you right there, but what would you say to men that are sitting there now and say, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to do that. I don't want to, I just don't trust doctors. There's an array of feelings, but what do you say to that man? Because out of the tens of thousands of people watching me and you right now, there's men sitting there now thinking just those thoughts. Yeah. What would you say to them?
You know, I can't say that I have a blanket statement. I guess there would be more questions that I would pose to them as to what is important in your life. Is life important? And if life is important, if your children or your spouse is important, then I assume if you're going to work every day, that's important so you can provide for your family. Well, the only way you can really achieve that of sorts is by taking care of yourself so that you can get up and go to work, so that you can play with your kids, and so that you can continue to function. And keeping your body, the ultimate Mercedes-Benz, tuned and ready for whatever you face is very important. And you basically are the one who has to answer that question. And there are lots of challenges that we have because, you know, people say, well, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to go through this and go through that. And I mean, I remember just even listening to the news, people saying, well, I don't want to wear a mask and this is all a hoax. And then the next thing they're on the ventilator. Well, the thing is, though, but they still really wanted to live because they went to the hospital. Because if they really didn't care, they shouldn't have gone because somebody else may have wanted it. So there's a battle that we all probably go through, and we try to, I guess, spend our time at our own Las Vegas wheel and say, well, gee, I can wait or I can do this later. Well, later may be too late. So, you know, prevention is just very important, and figure out what's important to you and your family.
Yeah, and don't spin the wheel. Don't spin the wheel, you know, because you don't know where the wheel's going to land. So don't risk that. The number's right there on the screen. Call CurePoint Cancer. Dr. Randolph would love to sit down with you and come up with a plan, whatever that might be, because it is hard to give a blanket statement, just like you just said, because we're all different. We're all the same, yet we're all different. You need to know histories of our families. And the last thing I want to say, Dr. Randolph, and I'm sure I can get a big amen here, but tell the doctor the truth. Don't leave things out, you know, about your history or your Uncle John or Aunt Sally or whatever, or if you're taking this vitamin or that vitamin. You need to know the whole picture, don't you?
It helps us help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the number's right there on the screen. Call CurePoint. Like I said, Dr. Randolph would love to sit down and talk with you and help you with that early detection or early screening, or to get on the right track as far as diet and things like that. So there's a wide array of things that Dr. Randolph and the staff at CurePoint can help you with. So pick up the phone and call that number. Make an appointment. He would love to help, and it's real easy. Just make the phone call. That's all you got to do. You take the first step, and the rest we'll take from there. But once again, thank you, Dr. Randolph.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I've enjoyed talking with you. Always enjoyed talking with you. And want to thank you all for joining us today, right here on TV 35.
When you want convenience, you want Neighbors Express, where you'll always find friendly, courteous service every time you visit us. Fill up with Pay at the Pump. Take advantage of our bigger and better selection of beverages and tobacco products. Enjoy our popular crushed ice with your favorite fountain drink. And you can always enjoy a fresh hot breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So stop by and see us today, where it's always convenient and friendly. Neighbors Express, locations at I-16 at 441 and in Cedar Grove, where we provide farm fuel for all our customers. When you want convenience, you want Neighbors Express.